So I've got a brand new series for you guys where each and every week I'll be putting out a video called This Week in Battlefield, where I'm going to gather pretty much any and all newsworthy topics throughout the week and compile them into a nice little bite-sized recap for you guys so that you can stay up to date on anything and everything that's been going on in the world of Battlefield, from official news, developer tweets, rumors and speculation, community news, or even drama within the community, and sometimes even just topics that maybe other members of the community have raised that I want to add my 2 cents to as well. This week in Battlefield, we've got some information about the number of people who signed up for Battlefield Labs. There's some tweets from David Sirlin that will please a lot of people, I'm sure. There is all but confirmation of where the map is based in the new gameplay that we saw. And we have some interesting news to talk about with the potential launch date of the upcoming Battlefield game. If you guys are new around here and you want to see a quick recap each and every week of all the news in Battlefield, be sure to hit that subscribe button. There is plenty more content on the way in the lead up to launch. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now, the first thing worth talking about this week was a report that came out from The Gamer, where they said that 1.3 million players have signed up for Battlefield Labs. Now, that is absolutely insane. I know that there was a lot of hype around it during the week when it launched, which was essentially the start of last week. As soon as those signups went live, and obviously the little trailer and stuff like that, there was a lot of hype, and my entire Twitter timeline was overtaken by Battlefield. So I knew that it was exciting and there was a lot of hype around it, but 1.3 million players signing up for essentially a closed playtest that, keep in mind, is only available in the US and in Europe. That is actually some insane numbers there that I honestly wasn't expecting. I was expecting maybe a few 100,000, but even in saying that, when I went to sign up about probably 4 hours or so after it went live on that very day, there were about 190,000 people in the queue at that time, and I couldn't actually sign up until essentially the following day. So it is very clear that the hype is really there around Battlefield Labs. It's pretty crazy to think about, considering how much of a hole Battlefield has been in for probably, like, we're getting close to being a decade now since it's been in a good position. 2018 was obviously when Battlefield 5 launched, and that for me kind of signifies like the downhill trend in Battlefield, and it's really just kind of gone a little bit downhill since then. And even after all that time, that's 7 years ago now, the fact that this many people are still excited for the next one, that is a very good sign. We just obviously need to hope that the game actually lives up to it. Now, EA have actually said in response to this that the response to Battlefield Labs has been overwhelmingly positive, and it's been beyond their expectations. So that is definitely a good thing. I think this points towards there being a lot of hope and excitement for the next game, but again, we need DICE and all of the studios now to deliver on that. So it's going to be easier said than done for them to actually live up to our expectations. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about are some tweets from David Sirlin, who is the lead producer on Battlefield, working at DICE. He's been very, very active on Twitter over pretty much the last few months. It's not even since this news came out about Battlefield Labs. Even before that, he was actually talking quite a bit. He really interacts with a lot of people on Twitter. And if you guys do have Twitter, I would honestly recommend following him, because there's a lot of information that comes out. Now, he essentially tweeted in response to someone saying that they are looking to kind of cherry pick from all of the best Battlefield games. The actual quote is, "We are pretty well informed of what things were not appreciated in the last one, the one before, and the other lot. We are looking to find the best possible cherry pick strategy for each area. You'll have to play to see what I mean." Now, this is definitely very exciting to hear. I will also caveat that by saying tweets do not confirm the game is good or anything like that. So until we see it, even like he said, then I can't really praise it too much, because it could just be all talk right now. But what he's saying is definitely sounding very good. If they do just go through and cherry pick essentially the best parts of each game and compile all of that into one single game, then provided it is not like buggy and it's not completely unbalanced and all that sort of stuff, if it just launches in a good state and it has cherry picked the best parts of each game, I think we genuinely would be in for a banger if they pulled that off. So again, easier said than done to actually put it into the game and execute it well, but I think that is what a lot of people really want to see. Now, I actually saw a comment that relates to this quite a bit. This was on the Battlefield Labs trailer, and this comment now has 35,000 likes, and it said, "Battlefield 3 setting, Battlefield 4 gameplay, Battlefield 5 visuals, Battlefield 1 immersion. This is the foundation of what we want. Don't try and reinvent the formula and over-innovate, just polish the formula you have already established." Now, that right there there, that really does to me, and I feel like to a lot of people in the community, kind of sum up what we want. I think that Battlefield 3 and I guess technically Battlefield 4, they're both pretty similar settings. That setting, the typical modern day setting, somewhere between like 2010 and 2025, for example, that is where I think most people want this game to be. I agree that the Battlefield 1 visuals were probably the best that we've seen in the Battlefield franchise, even though 2042 is newer. I don't think it looked even remotely as good as Battlefield 5 did. And when it comes to the immersion and just the atmosphere in general, Battlefield 1 is not only unmatched compared to Battlefield games, but to me it is the most immersive and atmospheric shooter in general that I've ever played in my life. So I completely agree with all of that, and the fact that David Sirland did say they are kind of trying to cherry pick from the best areas of each Battlefield game, that is definitely very promising. If they can essentially do what that comment said and just put all of those little bits in, then I think that really is the Battlefield game that a lot of us want, and hopefully they can deliver on that. Now, something else worth noting from this week is that we got pretty much all but confirmation on the fact that the map in the gameplay you're seeing in the background, obviously the new like little 10-second snippet that we got at the end of the Battlefield Labs trailer, it's essentially been confirmed that this map is set in Cairo, Egypt. Now, this was put together by someone called Raider on Reddit, and I'm actually just reading it here from the Battlefield Bulletin site on Twitter as well. And as you can see, there are 4 different images that I'm going to show that kind of allude to this being set in Egypt. Now, the first one, I'm not going to lie, this did not convince me at all. It's just a curb and some trees and stuff. Well, it does line up pretty well. It could be pretty much anywhere in that region of the world, so I didn't really look into that one too much. The next one though, this one is a lot more convincing. This really does look like it's almost a perfect replication of the images we can see at the bottom there, which is obviously set in Cairo. We also got a translation of some of the text that I actually touched on quickly in the breakdown as well. A lot of you guys in the comments, shout out to you guys, mentioned the first words there, Ahmed Al-Jawani, but no one really could see the, it's too small in my video anyway, the bottom line of text there, but apparently that says for the future of Egypt. And then there's also another image here that shows some of the art. This wasn't actually in that trailer, it was just like, I think on the website, but again, it does definitely lean towards some Egyptian architecture there as well. So obviously it's not official confirmation because we still don't know, but this is something that I'm pretty confident it's going to be set in Egypt. How I even said that in that breakdown as well, that I thought it could be somewhere around that region of the world. So that is pretty exciting to see. It seems as though we will be getting a map in Cairo, and from what we have seen of that map, it obviously looked pretty awesome in that little snippet of gameplay. Now, the last thing worth touching on this week was some comments from Andrew Wilson, who is essentially the boss of EA, and he said that they aren't opposed to moving Battlefield's release window beyond fiscal year 26 to account for a nuanced year relative to competition, which, without him saying that, is essentially the fact that obviously GTA 6 is coming this year. There are massive games on the way. We've got like Borderlands and Doom and Ghost of Yotei, and there's just so many games coming out this year. It's obviously going to have a lot of competition, even though it is a completely different game than pretty much any of the ones I just mentioned. And so there is the chance that this game doesn't actually launch this year, even though I personally don't think that's the case. I do think this will launch in 2025. But the fact that he straight up said they aren't opposed to moving it, that is definitely very interesting to hear. Now, there's a quote here. I'm actually just reading this again from Battlefield Bulletin. I don't know if this was in the earnings call or something like that, but this has obviously come from an official source because there is a full quote here. He says, "There may be some things happening in the year that may cause us to think differently about our launch timing," says Andrew Wilson in a recent Q&A session. And again, I have to assume that Q&A session was in the earnings call because they usually do them at the end. Now, he said, "We have a fiscal year 2026 launch window that the team is targeting. And keep in mind, I'll also just jump in here and say fiscal year 2026 essentially means by the end of March in 2026, the game should be out. So just because they're saying the year 2026 there, it is still most likely going to be in like October, November of 2025, because that is technically still in that period that they're talking about." He said, "We believe the game will be great and ready at that time, but if we got close to that time frame and believed that this wasn't going to be a great window for us, then we would take a look at what an alternate window might be that would give us the appropriate time, energy, and player acquisition opportunity for this Battlefield to be all that it needed to be." Now, there's lots of typical businessman PR lingo in there. Overall, I sort of see both sides of this story. On one hand, I do agree that probably avoiding GTA is actually the best thing they could do. GTA, I don't think people understand how big that game is going to be. It's going to be the biggest piece of media that has ever launched in the history of mankind, not just gaming, but movies, TV, anything. It's going to be the biggest thing we have ever seen. And anything that comes out in, a month or two either side of it is just going to be consumed by GTA. No one will be playing any other game when that game launches. Obviously, I don't mean that in a literal sense. People will still be playing Fortnite and playing FIFA and stuff, but I mean the large majority of like the general gaming community, they will be playing GTA 6. So it's not a bad idea to actually avoid that period just so that they don't launch the game and it does fairly well, but then GTA just steals all its players and then people kind of forget about it. That's not really a good business strategy. But on the other hand, I also think when the game's ready, put it out. I don't really give a shit about what other games are coming out because like I mentioned with some of the other games, not just GTA 6, but there are a million games coming out. And so there's never going to be a perfect time to release the game. And in my opinion, when it's ready, that is when they should put it out. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. They also do need to keep in mind that all of these other companies are going to be doing the same thing. There's a lot of games that will delay their own launch windows to avoid GTA 6 as well. And that means that in the, 3 to 6 months after GTA, that's also going to be very stacked anyway. So launching around the time of GTA might not actually be as bad as I initially said, because it might be one of the only other games that's coming out in that period where people might, they might jump on GTA, play a bunch of that, but then they want a different game to go and play too. And so, yeah, I just don't think there's a perfect time to release the game, and I wouldn't want them to change their entire strategy just to avoid one single game when it might not really make that much of a difference anyway. So interesting to think about. I personally think it's definitely coming in 2025, considering if it is 2026, that's a 5-year gap. That's a bigger gap than we've ever seen for Battlefield. Even a 4-year gap is bigger than we've ever seen. So I'd be shocked if it doesn't come out in somewhere around October, November, even maybe a little bit earlier than that in 2025. But yeah, Andrew Wilson, the boss of EA, essentially, is saying otherwise, so I dare say he probably knows a fair bit more than I do about when they're going to launch the game. So I thought that was worth mentioning as well. But that is pretty much it for this week in Battlefield. If there's anything I missed, be sure to leave a comment down below and let me know. And like I said, if you want to see more of this content moving forward, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be putting out one of these every single week in the lead up to the next Battlefield game. And if you guys enjoy them enough, I might even keep them up throughout the live service and stuff too. So keep your eyes peeled for more. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.